Hey, welcome back. Hey, we're back. Thank you guys for bearing with us with all the technical issues. We are actually going to take it back a little bit to the beginning because
I
I
have
know that
I have
you
no
couldn't
idea.
always hear some of what was going on at the beginning. So, our guests today are the amazing
I have
Saige
no idea what's
Ryan
going on
and
with
Michelle Wynn
with
Bradley. We are so excited to have you guys here. If you're hearing this more than once, we apologize, but you know what? These ladies are amazing, so I'm okay hearing them twice, and you should be too.
Yes, I mean, why it wouldn't be Women's History Month if we didn't have to work twice as hard for a show
To have our voices
that
heard.
usually goes off without a hitch. So,
And apparently, Renee and Solo, we can still hear one of your mics. So we'll just throw that out there too. Okay, Saige, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hello again. I'm Saige Ryan. I am a content creator here on the internet. I go by Not Sage. I am a streamer on my own channel, as well as a co-founder of the Pixel Circus channel. We're a variety channel that does tabletop, gaming news, podcasts, all kinds of fun and exciting content. And I am playing some kind of tabletop game somewhere most days of the week.
Awesome. And Michelle.
Hello, I'm Michelle Wynn Bradley. You can find me on the internet at I am Chubby Bunny. I am a cast member of Hunter's Entertainment's channel, which is on Tuesday evenings. We do Outbreak Undead. It's very spoopy. I'm also a cast member of Paizo's official channel. They just started doing shows recently on Twitch. So I finished a Pathfinder campaign with them called Troubles in Otari, and we are moving on to a not yet announced Starfinder campaign sometime this month. It's happening real soon. I'm also going to be at the virtually at the Gen Con Spring Showcase on Saturday, doing a show for Paizo there, and it's going to be all about pirate ships, and I'm a bird, and I'm real loud, and I'm also mystical, whatever that means. You can also find me on YouTube at the Total Nerd channel, doing deep dives into video games. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so let's go back to our first question, which I don't even remember what it was now, but I know you guys had an amazing answer for it. Something about
how did you first begin? How did you first get into gaming? Was it difficult? Did you have roadblocks, or did you just slide right in?
Yes, there we go. See, Genevieve remembers.
I started because I was like, I a little bit slid right in because I was really lucky. I entered the tabletop gaming sphere as like an adult maybe about 8 years ago. I was introduced to D&D first. This is like after, I'm married, all my friends, like this is like 6 married couples all sitting down at someone's dinner table like playing D&D. And then I started working for Hyper RPG and doing tabletop board gaming coverage for them. And then I ended up being cast on the Rat Queens RPG show, and that was super fun. It was an all-lady cast. And it was really diverse and fun cast. And then I started just playing, like just starting meeting people and getting onto their stuff. And I just feel like there's always been at least half women or more. And like there was one show I was on that was just one guy. And like that was not it was like by accident. We're like, oh, I guess it's just one guy. Like, are you okay with that? Or do you feel uncomfortable?
Right.
But I do know there's still issues like in the gaming space and a lot of gatekeeping, as Saige will point out.
Yeah, Saige, there we go.
Apparently. Hello, I'm here to talk about gatekeeping.
Is that a way to lead in?
That's my role here. Let me tell you something terrible. I got into tabletop gaming starting with actually Magic the Gathering. I used to go and play in local Magic the Gathering tournaments. I grew up in Orange County, California, and there was just not a welcoming community for women in gaming, unfortunately, or at least not one that I had found, or maybe it was just at the time I desperately, fingers crossed, as someone who has like a little niece that's still there, I desperately hope that that is changing. But I used to literally hide under the tables at the game store so that kids from schools locally would not see me, because I knew that would be the end of it. There's no coming back from that. So for most of my life growing up in like traditional entertainment and acting, I didn't really get to outwardly be a nerd in any capacity. I didn't have a table of people that were playing tabletop games or role playing. Mostly I just knew people that absolutely shunned it. Everything that I knew of Dungeons and Dragons was from a negative perspective of others. And then when I was about 18 or 19, I was introduced by a friend, and I feel like it just unlocked the entire community, because once you're in, and it's been really, really amazing. And I am now just trying to find more and more tables that sound like Michelle's.
Yeah.
All I want.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's always fun being the woman entering the game store and flipping up your hoodie and putting on your sunglasses like you're the guy in in Mean Girls. She doesn't even go here.
Right.
Right.
And that stuff still happens. I remember I was hired on for a show that was in development, and they had brought on a man to DM it. The show never existed. Don't go digging through the shows I'm on. It's fine. But I remember like I was the first cast member and we had a meeting, and he was like, "So have you actually played?" And I was like, "Uh-huh." And he was like, like what class? I was like,
"Oh, it was a quiz. That sucks." Yeah.
Most of them. And every step of the way, it was trying to catch me on it or trying to test me on my knowledge of the game. So those things are still happening, unfortunately.
You know, now that you mentioned that, I do remember I was interviewed for a show, again, a show that never happened, but it was very like, oh wait, you play, and like as soon as you started talking, I was like, I don't need part of this anymore. Like, interview's over. I just like, and I think for me, in my headspace is like, if I know if I want to be part of something, and if it starts to feel like crappy like that, I'm just like, bye. I don't need this. I literally don't need this shit. Goodbye. Like, so I think I was able to like avoid a lot of that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of signals, man.
Yeah.
When you enter a bad gaming station, it's like my spidey sense is tingling.
Right. Or like when they start questioning your knowledge of like, you know, because well, now most of my comic books are like on Comixology, but like I would go in for comic books and they're like, "Oh, are you here for," I don't even know what insulting comic they asked. I was there. I was like, "No, can I see the Boys edition 1?" And they're like, yeah. So what are some of the things that you feel like maybe you are really needing to push for within this space, either that you have had to do? Michelle, I know you mentioned you have a clause in all your contracts now, which is amazing.
And I've had to say no to shows, which I'm like, that I wanted to be part of, because I'm just like, man, is this where I make my stand? Like, and I kind of have to, like, if we're going to make real change happen, you have to be ready to let go of things you want to do. So my clause, I guess you'd call it, is that I can't be the only person of color. I'm not going to be the token, whatever you want me to be. I'm not filling a slot for, I want different stories to be told. I want different viewpoints to be told. I think it's really important in the gaming space. And for anyone watching to know that everyone has a story and it's different from everybody else's. And I think, to me, we're just talking about like feeling like the bad juju in a space. Sometimes I see shows like get advertised and like maybe my friends are really excited about them. I'm like, cool, let me look at the cast. If it's like all white males, I won't even read the fucking blurb about it. I'm just like, no, I don't care. Or like, I don't care. I don't care about the story. I've heard it before already. I know exactly what's going to happen. I know all the jokes are going to be cracked. I'm done. So I'm not necessarily a demographic for every single show. I get that. But I do think that, the community can get really comfortable with a certain kind of story and just want that over and over again. And that's not interesting to me. And that's not progressive in any way for anybody. So yeah, more diversity, more women, get them in your games. Makes a better story.
Yeah. Saige, what about you? I know you had some.
Yeah. I think that my focus right now is removing the idea of there being one or two women at the table and allowing spaces for women to be a majority. Like I said, I'm part of an all female cast on Damsel's Dice and Everything Nice. And there's a lot of oddly people that like take up a thing with that on occasion. And people really are wonderful. Like we have an incredible community around the show. But every once in a while, there's kind of this idea where there's somebody who has this like hesitation to it or thinks that it's in some way more frivolous than any other Dungeons and Dragons campaign. To that, I say, I can do 146 points of damage at level 7. I will crush you. Absolutely not. And then in addition to that, I think to build off of what Michelle was saying, I am trying really hard as a white woman to be mindful of taking up space. I'm trying to look at cast and go, oh, you do not need me. Please do not, do this, because it's too unfortunate too. And like I, as a white woman, am trying to be mindful of just like not taking up spaces in casts that should not be mine and that are too white and are too predominant and majority of white people, and trying to, in any way that I can, contribute by just taking a step back and not taking up space.
Yeah. I feel like that's something that I wish more people would be mindful of, Michelle and Saige, both of what you just just mentioned is like, we want to be improving and increasing diversity, but we don't want it to be tokenism. And we've all faced that. It's like, oh, can we have you? Oh, you want me because I'm the one woman on.
Yeah,
There's
Or-
nothing more awkward than walking into the room and finding that you're the only woman there, or the only X, Y, or Z person there. And
I think there's something to be said about now that sorry, I didn't even cut you off.
No.
Now that the gaming space is getting like bigger and there's a lot of like shows, and I think people are treating RPG shows as products, as shows, and not just like, this is someone's home game. They just put it on camera for people to like have fun with it. That's also fine. I think that's totally valid also. But when it comes to like a show, you're investing money, there's sponsors, you're paying your cast. I think that the community needs to start talking about like having casting agents or having some sort of like safety net thing, because we don't have that. Like, any show I've been cast on is because a friend recommended me or somebody saw me on something else. I've never been interviewed. Well, I've only been interviewed once for an RPG show. That didn't happen, and it was very scary. It didn't sound very good. So I think there's like a space here. Like, there's like a need for some sort of like community contract thing. We all agree that we're all like, if we're really casting for a show, we're gonna really look for people and not just like, invite my brother and his two friends because they happen to like live right there. Like, I think there's a lot of that happening for these sponsored shows that needs to change. And I know it's hard because we want to play with people that we know, we want to feel safe, we want to do these things, but it's at some point it's becoming like a job, and it's becoming like content. You're making content, so we have to consider all these things, and it's hard to move from one thing to the other.
Yeah.
So we all know the not like other girls thing that it's, been trending, all over the internet. Have you guys ever felt like, or had to fight against the feeling of, I'm not like other girls, like when you were first starting? Or have you had other people throw the, oh, so you're not like other girls label onto you?
Oh, absolutely. That manic pixie nightmare bullshit. Get it out of here. Absolutely. I look back, and as someone who was a nerdy teenager that didn't have a lot of female friends, I look back and I'm like, God, I was such a pick-me piece of shit. Like, I really believed that because because of internalized misogyny, and because of the way that it allowed you to get in to video games, into the nerd space, and the way that the community accepted you by doing so when it was such a boys' club. So like, looking back at teenage me, I'm just like, oh, you were just so sad. It's so depressing to look back at somebody who just like hated being a teenage girl so much. And there's so much of media that imposes that about something being inherently bad about being a woman or being a girl, and especially for teenagers. And I think that's where all of that comes from, that like pick me girl, that I'm not like other girls. I am aggressively proud now to be like other girls. Oh my God. There's so many incredible women out there. And if I can in any way be like them, then I feel like I'm doing something absolutely right.
I love that.
Yeah, I feel like I grew up with I think we all grew up with that similar problem. Like, if you want to be allowed to like these things, you have to be one of the boys in the boys club and talk like them and act like them and like their sports and know historical facts about baseball. I'm just not saying anything specific here, but I really feel that, Saige, like when you said, like be proud to be like other girls. It is definitely misogyny. It is them teaching us to hate women as much as they do, which is what is the point in that? I think, I'm lucky to have some close girlfriends now. It's definitely not as many as I had when I was younger. I find that in LA, a lot of, I don't know, maybe it's just being an adult thing, but the close friends I have now, I could tell they went through a lot of things where like, I've never had any close girlfriends. Like, you're one of my first close girlfriends. And it's like, really, we have to have these like big conversations about it, because I'm like, we're not competing with each other. Please stop taking everything I say to be it's ingrained in us so deeply. And it's really sad. So I try hard to not be like it, but you know what? Sometimes, especially like as a minority, and a woman, I feel like there's this like really tiny space for me in like the entertainment industry where there can only be one. It's very Highlander. Like if there's another girl and who's an Asian girl on a show, especially if she has colored hair, I'm not getting in. If she's already in, I'm out. You can't have two. Then it becomes the weird Asian girl show. So I think that way about like, you know, slots. We're talking about like having like just one woman on a show. It's like, well, they already have one. We don't really need another one. Like in the party, it's only like one sexy girl, and then we don't need anybody else. And I think that's obviously that's wrong, but it sucks to like in your head you kind of know there's only so many spots that just these people are going to let you have, which is why I have to make our own spaces so that there's spots for us because we made them that way. Which
is so upsetting because when has anyone ever been like, man, we have way too many white cis males here. Like it's all of Hollywood. It's like the fact that we're having this conversation about quotas is just so infuriating.
I'm going to tell you, I have been having that thought a lot though. I have been thinking a lot, wow, we have way too many white cis males here.
We do.
To be fair, like,
wait, what's that shirt we were talking about off camera? What did it say about the men? I want them to be in the minority. That t-shirt.
The t-shirt on that website. Yeah. So guys, I'm going to drop this in the chat because if you have not heard, Saige has now turned us on to this amazing company called Feminist Trash.
It's called Feminist Trash. My shirt says "Pay me like a white man," and they make a lot of similarly themed shirts that are absolutely excellent if you're an angry feminist like myself.
I found the shirt. It's mediocre white men should be the diversity hire.
So good. And of course
I love that.
But I mean, we are talking about gender parity. It's like, you know, and this is obviously, we're not saying we don't feel like there needs to be there should be no place for the cis white male, because obviously, you know, but the fact that we're having to have ridiculous. The conversation. It does. Yeah. But it's like, but that's been the default for so long, you know, and no one's ever questioned it. And now we are questioning it. So what is something that you wish maybe someone had told you as you were getting into the space, or that you would convey to, you know, other women or girls or female identifying who are wanting to try and enter this space and maybe are intimidated, or like we've talked about, don't feel like they belong?
I think that I would have loved the reassurance early on that speaking up is not going to get you like excommunicated from the tabletop community. Standing up for yourself is going to put you in a position where you're surrounded by people who actually share the same values and actually, you know, believe and care for you. Where in a lot of situations early on in my hosting career and in gaming in general, there were situations where I know I kept my mouth shut because I was just so grateful to be there. I was so happy to just be included. I was so happy to be a part of it. And I had watched the roles that had been given to women in gaming. And I was just like, yeah, it's not great, but I want to be here so bad that I'll do whatever it is. And that was often objectifying or demeaning. And I wish someone had told me at the time that there is a space for you, even if you stand up for yourself and say no to these people.
I feel that. Whenever Saige starts talking, I'm like listening so intently, I don't remember what I'm supposed to say afterwards. But no, I feel that. So yes, also me. But I was thinking something that I didn't learn about until like I was like playing for a while is that, you know, before you start playing a game, it's like real important that everyone has these big adult conversations about like, hello everyone, what are your boundaries? We need to talk about them now so that we're not mid-game and you feel too embarrassed to say anything because you're like, well, I don't want to stop the flow and like ruin it, especially if you're on camera and this kind of thing happens. There's a lot of talk, luckily now in the gaming space about setting your lines and veils in advance, having the what's it called, the safety card to make sure you're okay during the like holding up a card that says 0. Have an X card, or even just like DM someone, hey, like can we take a second, and to be okay, to be comfortable asking for that space, but also because we don't live in a perfect society yet, before the gaming starts, to make that space to be like, hey guys, just real quick, we haven't talked about lines and veils yet. I'd really like to just put that on the table. What are we like? There's like a PDF, I believe, somewhere on the internet that's just sort of a generic one. Mm-hmm. Email it to everybody. Make sure we're all sharing that. and bring up the X card thing. If your GM or DM is not doing that, like, just say it, because even if you feel like you're totally okay with everything, eventually something's gonna happen. In all the years of playing, something will happen where you're like, oh, we really should have talked about this. It feels like it's too late. Oh, but I do have an out. You have to always feel like you have an out.
Right.
So I guess the overarching thing is secure your safety in your game before you get started, and kind of trust your gut about that too. We touched on briefly that we start to enter a game and we get this weird juju feeling of like, oh, this feels like it's gonna be a bad time. Like, feel free to just tell yourself, this, if I quit this thing, it's not the last thing. There's plenty of other space at other places, and if there isn't for a while, it's better than me being upset and traumatized potentially by something that bad that's gonna happen. So
yeah,
protect yourself.
Speaking of safe spaces, like it's really easy to point out the misogynists who are just out there and are really vocal about their beliefs about women and giving women equal time and and equal space. But usually that's not the type of misogyny that women face daily. Like, that's usually, it's very underhanded. It's under, like, it goes unspoken, and a lot of the times it goes unseen except to the person that it's happening to. Have you guys ever been in a game or a situation in which maybe the GM, the DM is kind of what you want to take your character in a certain direction, or you want to do something with your character, but the GM just doesn't have that vision for your character because you're a woman, and they try and steer it in the direction that they want to? For example, I was playing a Star Wars RPG in which there was a female, she was a villain but turned to our team, and I wanted to have a romance with her. But one of the characters, who was playing like a Han Solo type, he was trying to just seduce her and then have, just notch on the belt sort of thing, like do his Han Solo routine. Whereas I was actually interested in trying to make an interesting relationship with this character, but the GM just kept like steering away and then leaning more towards the side of the other male player. So I was just wondering if maybe you guys have experienced something similar where it's not like it's not like, no, you can't because you're a girl, but it's no, it's more of a silent no, more of a we're pushing, we're gonna do this my way sort of thing.
I feel like I've had a very good experience with the GMs that I've played with so far. I've had other players do that, actually. I was playing in a campaign, and this man that I didn't know had built this character that was just this kind of like, human fighter kind of dude. Like, very much like, I'm going to be the tough guy hero that wields a big sword and saves the day.
Sword guy.
Yeah, sword guy that's like, I'm really sly and slick and I don't play by the rules. And you're just like, yeah, okay.
Speaking of Highlander.
Sure. Right. Okay, man, sure, you get it. And like, I had written a very quirky character that didn't like invalidate her power by any means. And there were so many occasions in which I would be like, I'm going to do this. And he'd be like, I'm going to do this thing over you that completely ignores and invalidates your action and your choices because it's about me now. And it was one of those that like kept happening long enough that I left the campaign. I'm just like, there's no point in us doing this. But there are those situations too, where if your GM doesn't speak up for you, that is responsibility of a game master to speak up for and protect their players. And to a point where I'm just like, is this a character issue? Is this a player issue? On what level do we need to break this down that you see my choices as so invalid and so frivolous that you can just completely ignore and step over them?
Right. I actually left the game that I was playing too. So that
Yeah.
seems to
Get out of there, man.
Sometimes you just got to walk away. Yeah. Michelle, do you
Yeah.
have any stories like that? Or?
You know, I can't think of something specific
That's
right
good.
now. Yeah, I've lived a blessed life with
You've had a blessed, yeah.
RPGs, but I will say, kind of to put a button on that with what Saige was saying is that because we are ourselves and we're also playing a character, but we're also playing with real humans that exist, that line of like, who are you being addicted to? Are you being addicted to me, my character? Because your character wants, like, you're like trying to figure that out is why like safety stuff is so important, because it, you know, a lot of campaigns that I know of have fizzled out because they're like, yeah, this person's being like a dick about it, and I'm like, well, was the character being a dick to your character, or were they being a dick to, like, because you can like, hey guys, did you know you can just like stop playing for a second and be like, hey, can we just like above table check in and be like,
right,
are we cool, or are you really mad? I don't want to make you mad, like, for realsies, but I'm trying to do this thing. And then you talk about your motives and then kind of work it out. But you know, regardless of any kind of gameplay you do, whether it's with, you know, other guys or people who are, anyone who's disrespecting you needs to be talked to like, you know,
yeah.
above table. And it's important to know that you can just take a break and to feel comfortable doing that.
Well, I guess kind of on the flip side of that, on the more, maybe on a more positive side, you know, we had a guest on a couple of weeks ago who was talking about how as a non-binary person, she loved tabletop gamings because she had trans friends who, it was like, it was the first time they were able to play as an opposite gender, and it really helped find themselves. Do you guys have any examples of like where, you know, being able to create a character or embody a character, I don't know, helped you work through things or helped you learn things about yourself?
I've recently started playing as the sword guy, but every time someone's like, oh, so are your pronouns he, him? And I'm like, no, I'm still a girl. I'm just the sword person, please. Like, right. You know, gender is a construct. But like I did recently maybe like 2 campaigns where I was sort of like the tough person who like kicked down walls because it was fun, and playing, like, role playing that, and as opposed to being the person who I am, who is like constantly second guessing, I try to make myself so small in every like space I am. I just try to be quiet and like make no one notice me, and it just made me feel like, I don't know, it felt really fun and freeing to be like, wow, it's weird to roleplay a confident person who you just yell in a room and everyone listens to you. Like, that's never really happened to me before. So like doing that makes you realize how stupid it is that I feel that way about myself. It's like, no, I know what I'm talking about, as like I am that character because I said the words also, you know. So it's nice to, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you have anxiety like I do, it's nice to play not that for a little bit and to kind of work through your own stuff via doing it for fakesies on tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of my characters have a little bit of my trauma. Like, realistically, like, I write such edgelord characters. I can't help it. Every time I get into a campaign, I'm like, this time they're going to have a really nice backstory and she's just going to be here to have fun. And it never happens. Every time I'm just like, just kidding, tragedy. So I think that though I never recommend utilizing anything other than therapy as therapy is great. Go to therapy if you have, you know, something you need to work through. I think that there are a lot of things that I have explored through tabletop, as long as I get to explore them within myself and not impose them on someone else. I think there are a lot of things that I've been able to explore and work through and just kind of take myself out of, and live in a world with a character that gets to express themselves in a way that like we don't in the day-to-day, whether it be taking it out in these like fighting and the toughness of this character, or the emotional moments you share with players that like, then tomorrow I got to get up and go to work and I can't do that. So
I think, like, you know, tabletop has gotten so huge during the pandemic, because it's a chance to go on an adventure and like do stuff, but you're in your house still, like you're just in your head, and to do with other people. It's different than just watching a movie, you know. It's different than just like playing a game, because you're collaborative storytelling with other people and their experiences that shape like what their character says. And I just love playing role play. Like, it saved me, man. Like, without role playing games over the pandemic, I don't know where I'd be.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, it's definitely my vicarious living of social interaction right now.
Well, it's so true, because it's like, this is all we've got. I mean, it's not all we've got, but like, I know for me, D&D tabletop games have like been my sanity through all this because I get to see the same people. And it's like, man, I had a shitty week, but now I'm going to dive into this character who, you know, well, they might have a shitty time too, but
It's fantasy crap.
Look, you right, sword guy, okay?
Yeah. If I'm having a bad day as a warlock, I can Eldritch Blast it at least.
Exactly. Yes. If only we could do that in real life. It's like, oh, QAnon conspirator, Eldritch Blast. But no. Sorry. I digress.
Great.
Oh God, sorry. I went a little off topic there. So do you feel like when you sit down at a table or now across from, you know, someone's video camera, do you feel like that there is something, some sort of point of view that is different and unique that you're bringing to the table that, you know, a lot of your male counterparts might not have, that has maybe enhanced the game or has taken the game in a way that, you know, surprised other people or you might not have thought of beforehand? I know that's a very loaded question, you know, but you know, the female perspective, you know, we talk about it in entertainment where it's like, okay, telling stories through a female lens is very different. You know, guys can write amazing female characters, but there is something unique about telling stories through a female lens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm trying to think of like what my, I guess, unique perspective is without being like, well, here's why I'm incredibly special. So the reason I'm important at the table is, I think that having women at the table as a whole, it changes the tone drastically. It is a collaborative role-playing game, and because of misogyny's effects on men as well, a lot of the time a really male-heavy table is often just such a different experience in competitiveness and aggression and these things that are imposed upon men themselves. And I think that female perspective makes a game so much more rich. And I think that being there can often also allow the men at the table or the male presenting or identifying to open up a little bit and to allow themselves, like in general, my experience with men is when I am interacting with a man, there is a sensitivity that they can feel comfortable sharing with me that they can't with other men. And that's kind of what I hope to bring to a table for everybody, is a comfortability and a sensitiveness of allowing you to dive into an emotion of a character. I'm there to role play. Combat's fun, but I am there to role play. And I would like to provide a space where everybody feels comfortable in that.
Yeah.
I'm Michelle, also struggling with what makes me special. I have,
you know what? I feel like that's a very female thing to say, because like how many guys are just, they don't hesitate to like boast about how amazing they are.
Fighting and punching horses. Now, why did I even say that? Okay. Well, I studied improv for a while, long before I got into, well, the timing was a little bit like right before I got professionally into RPGs and doing shows and stuff like that. And what you learn in improv is that anything that is in your little brain whatever's at the top of your mind is going to come out whether you want it to or not, during like a yes-anding scene, because you are reacting in real time. There's no script. You kind of like, well, generally speaking, you don't have like a major, you don't have a plan for every little line that you're going to do. So you're going to end up talking the way you always talk anyway. And you're going to react to things the way you personally would, even though you're a character. Most of the time, it's hard to suppress that a lot of the time. So I think when I play RPGs, I'm always trying to make sure the thing I'm saying is relevant, but also like I think it's really important to yes and other characters. And I know that seems really like basic, I guess, but when your character maybe doesn't, character A doesn't like character B and you're A, and B says, I want to do this, and usually you're like, oh, my character would say, don't do that. But like you're having a show, you're trying to have a good time, you go, you know what, I will help you with that, even though I don't want you. Just say that out loud, and that becomes like the thing that your character does. And I think I do that a lot. I do a lot of like, And now I'm checking in with everyone, even though I'm the asshole of the group, because I just really actually do want to know what people want to do.
Right.
So I think like, I don't know, the thing I'm good at is just pushing away for, like, I just like parting the veil a little bit, and then Michelle sticks her head on and says, are we cool? What do you want to do? Okay, let's do that. Just give me a second. I'll figure it out. And then I go back in.
Yeah.
So recently I've had to play the leader of the party a couple times for like some reason. It's just like the way it's been happening. And I've been trying to be really careful about it's weird when you play the leader as a character, you end up kind of being the leader at the table, a little bit, even if you're not the person who set up the game or you don't know anybody else that well, you just kind of start role playing that. So at least for me, I just try to make space for everybody at the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just a natural born leader. So I mean, as players, obviously, you're going to have an effect on your team and your group. But let's expand that question. And is there anything unique about having a female DM or GM that they might bring to the table? Have you guys experienced?
I don't want to generalize by any means,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
I've had so many wonderful experiences with female GMs. And again, like meeting me in my feelings a lot of the time. And that sensitivity that is brought by it. And again, like, I don't want to generalize. Not everyone wants to tell a sensitive story by any means, but like, Emily Rose Jacobson was somebody that was the storyteller for a Witcher RPG that I did. And just her ability to meet us and our feelings in a tragic and horrifying game was really, really incredible. And these experiences that I've had repeatedly where the empathy at the table is different. The understanding of my feelings, the fact that like before our show next week, we have something that we're getting into that even just barely touches on just the tiniest bit of a potentially sensitive topic. My female DM has been in all of our DMs, all of our text messages being like, where does this line for you? How is this comfortable for you? What can I do to, comfortably help you explore this topic? And that's something that I don't think doesn't exist in male GMs, but I would love to see more of.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree with that. I've had really wonderful male and female GMs, but the pattern I've noticed is that the female GMs will tend to check in more about feelings. That a lot of my male GMs that I've had, they're all great. I mean, I don't want to like put down anybody, but just that they do tend to focus more on like combat and like numbers and stuff. And there's a little less RP, I think, I've noticed there. Yeah, gosh, again, this is lines and veils is like so important. We keep coming back to it, but like I had a female GM reach out about that, and I was like very specific, and I don't know how to talk about it without talking about it, but basically when it came to it, it was a show. There were some producers like on the back end being like, hey, could you guys actually go back again and talk about this because you kind of missed it, and we feel like it's important to like we feel like you missed it. And then she was just very like, I don't think we have to do that, and she didn't say because someone said that was past their line. She just said, I just think she just like was like, I don't think that's very important to the story. I think we can just move on, and that can be implied, and that for this campaign specifically, we will just say it happened off screen, or I'll just say one line about it, but we won't describe it. And they're like, are you sure? And they asked her like a couple of times, and I was sitting there like I don't know, I just letting her take the hits for me for some reason, but she really went to bat for me. I really appreciate that.
That's wonderful.
I love that. So obviously, Wizards has been making a lot of changes, strides, improvements, especially over the past year, the past 6 months. I mean, Tasha's, Cauldron of Everything has really expanded things and done away with a lot of, stereotyping and things like that. But there's still ways for people to go. What are some things that you would like to see or think still needs to be changed or improved upon, either in D&D or in other tabletop games? I mean, obviously there's a wide range of games that are out there and they're not all even remotely the same, but what are some things that you think still need to be changed or improved upon?
I think that something I was really excited to see with like Candlekeep Mysteries and with the new campaign for Ravenloft, or the new book for Ravenloft rather, is more female writers and more writers of color. It's not so much the characters in books. It's not so much that, it is the perspective and it is the representation. And looking at the list of writers for those two books was so much more meaningful than I even could have imagined it being. Looking at the list of these writers and getting to see how inclusive it truly was for the last two books was so impactful for me. And I trust these books in their hands. Like, these books aren't here yet. I don't have them in my hands, but like, I trust that there will be adequate representation. I trust that there will be characters that are relatable and interesting for hopefully everyone. And I've also really enjoyed seeing them move towards lineages as opposed to necessarily race. I think that that's a really impactful change that can be made, of eliminating a lot of the tragic old stereotypes of a game from the 70s, and moving towards like this lineage, and moving towards, it doesn't have to have any kind of connotation with it. You can just be a vampire, you know?
Yeah.
That meant a lot to me.
There's good and bad in everything, and humans can obviously be horrible too. Michelle, what about you?
Yeah, absolutely agree with Saige. There definitely has been way more representation of gender and ethnicities writing these things for the big guys, which is Wizards of the Coast. I've been lucky to be able to play a lot of different games. Besides, I actually play probably D&D like the least out of all the tabletop that I do for fun and for work. But when you start playing all these different systems, you realize that they do have like a lot of the same sort of problems, where it's like, do archetypes have to be like so specific? I think there should be, everyone plays differently. And for probably like us for like, we're adults who have played a lot of games, when we want to customize a character, we don't mind saying like, hey, I want to be this fighter, and I'd like the things that this archetype gets, but I don't want to be the fucking chosen one. Can I please do something else? Or like, I don't want to be like the good wife, or whatever thing is written in this book. That doesn't really make any sense. It's good to be able to be flexible to change those things. But the problem is, if it's written in the book, people are like, well, these are the rules and you have to play by the rules, or we're not even playing the game. So what are we doing? So I think it's important for, moving forward, game writers to, as well as being more, gender diverse and ethnically diverse, to acknowledge that this stuff needs to be, we can't just say out loud and like, oh, here's an addendum, we're just going to say it. Like, it has to be in the ding dang books, because that's what most people are looking at. They're not, we are online so much as people who are involved in the entertainment space portion of RPGs. So we all get it. We're in an echo chamber, but people who are buying these books, who like most people are not as involved as we are. So they're not seeing these things. So I think that's one thing. People don't realize how important like the print version of things is, or like whatever is on D&D Beyond even is important to get that, like the verbiage fixed. Verbiage.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like, we've seen a huge explosion in home brews, both within, D&D, but also in other tabletop gamings, where people are literally just like, you know what, I'm going to take this game mechanics and I'm going to tell my own story. What are your experiences that you guys have with that, with someone who's just like, you know what, I love the game mechanics, but like we said, like, it's not really representative of my story, so I'm just going to tell it myself.
I love homebrew. I play mostly homebrew. I've been in and run adventures from the books, but like, I would say 9 out of 10 games I play in our homebrew. On the show, I do Failed Save. Our DM Vince Casso has built an incredible and massive homebrew world. And I've really, really enjoyed the elimination of associations that the races have, that even some of the classes have, and allowing it to explore and create it. Because as we go, okay, if my hometown is like this and I'm from here and I'm playing this race or class, I can just decide that that's what this place is like. I don't have to be like, oh, well, this race actually is shunned in this area or whatever. No, I'm from here and it was great. And that's fine with me. Thank you. And being allowed to do that is wonderful.
Yeah.
I love homebrew.
I guess, when I first started playing D&D, I didn't know you could just like make your own stuff up. I was like, well, won't that break the game? And then we're not playing the game anymore. And then of course, like a year later, everything I do is, oh no, we're just all making up our own backstories. Like, let's try to answer these like 5 basic questions about our characters and like move on from there. But like young Michelle was very scared of doing that. I was like, well, I don't know what to do. And if I write this, is that wrong? Like, will that mess up my character? Like making my first character was the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life as a young one. But and I laugh at that now because I can make a new character in like 5 minutes. Like because I my head is in the right space for it, where I can just, it's like, there are no rules. You do whatever you want, and you tell your GM, this is what I'm doing. Does this break your game? No, let's do it. So I think that freedom to make the character you want, for me, I guess it's like the homebrew thing that I never think about it as homebrew. I think about it as, no, I want to do this. What's wrong with it? Can I ask these 2 questions? Is it cool? Okay, we're just doing this. And I don't think about I almost never think about going to the book and like picking exactly this persona or this archetype anymore. Almost never. I usually think about like what character I saw in a show recently that I kind of want to be, and I'm like, I'll do that, but with magic.
I definitely, like, after reading the Witcher series and, you know, watching the show and everything, I definitely then went on to create a fighter rogue based on Renfrey, because I was like, I love this woman so much.
I did Ciri, but I was a wizard and it was amazing.
I've also played Ciri, but it was the Witcher RPG.
Yes,
there you go.
Awesome. Well, we have time for one more question, and I can't think of a better one than, you two are, you know, in the real world, you're role models for other women and girls. What, you know, on social media or maybe on a stream or in a chat, what was one of the most satisfying things that you've ever heard from a fan? And it can be male or female or whoever.
Oh, I've got it immediately. I know exactly what it was. And I like keep talking about Damsel's Dice and Everything Nice because that's, you know, that's been a huge impact for me in understanding women's place in this. It's a very cool game. I love it. But the first time being a part of a campaign that got messages that said, I watched this with my daughters, that didn't see themselves in tabletop content previously, and allowed them to also enjoy feminine, traditionally feminine interests without it having to be separate. It doesn't have to be, you know, tough. It doesn't have to be harsh or dark, but letting them be like, hey, I like Disney princesses and I can also really like Dungeons and Dragons. And both of those things are entirely valid. And getting message from parents saying, I'm watching this with my kids. My daughter's taking up Dungeons and Dragons. We're putting together her first game, has changed me to my core and what I do. And it gave a much deeper purpose to why I make the content I make.
That's awesome. I have a similar story. It is, but I guess, so I've been sort of in, I know it's called like the influencer world for a lot longer than I've been playing tabletop. And a long time ago, I realized that things I do affect people. You guys can Google it. I had a viral wedding because it was Sailor Moon and Art Deco themed. This is back in like 2014 are the numbers I'm looking for. And I was just like, I had a cool wedding and I designed it. It's really neat. I just post photos of it, whatever. And the messages I got from that were so like, not just like, so cool, where do I buy this? They were like, I didn't know you could combine a geeky interest with a thing that we have to do as women and make it like, I didn't know you could do, like people just didn't, it blew their minds. They're like, wait, your husband let you do that? And I was like, let me, excuse me. He was like helping me plan it because when you're married, you should be like a partner in all things, like including like the wedding, and it should be a reflection of both of you. And so like these, like I had to answer all these emails about, mostly about like not where did you buy the thing or like how can I get this? It was about like, how did you feel allowed to do this thing? You know? And I was like, who are you getting permission from? This is ridiculous. So that was like the first time I really realized how important, like, you know, your social, like outward facing self is, even though, you know, social media is a little bit bullshit, but it does matter that people see someone who looks like you or sounds like you or shares your interest that does a thing. Like seeing that, it really affects you. And I had a similar little kid thing. This happened like really recently. I want to say like a month ago or a month and a half ago, when I was playing this sword person on Troubles in Atari on Paizo's channel. At the end, I hopped on Twitter and somebody like added me like, hey, I just started watching this while I was doing laundry. I started from episode 1. Like they were kind of far back. And my daughter popped in the room and now she wants to buy armor. She wants to look like you. And I was like, I started crying. I was like, oh my God, my life's work is done. Because the same thing, like little, like people knowing that they're allowed to do stuff, like getting permission by watching someone else do it is really important. That's why representation is important.
Yes, exactly. Well, and I think that's the theme of the show today is like representation, all voices being heard, and it just makes it better for everyone involved. We are at the end of the show. You guys were so amazing. Thank you for being here. Before we sign off, do you have anything you want to shout out? I mean, obviously we've got their Twitter and Instagrams right there. You can see on the overlays. Please follow them. But is there anything you want to shout out before we sign off?
Adopt, don't shop, dogs and cats and pets. I don't know. I feel like it's everything at the beginning.
I mean, that is important too.
Okay.
It is great. It's gonna sound really shallow now if I tell you about tabletop shows, isn't it?
Sorry.
Just throw in a charity on top of it.
Mostly do her thing.
Look at my Instagram I did a cosplay of Raya from Raya the Last Dragon. It's really cool. How about that?
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
You can find me on Fridays and Saturdays playing D&D for Failed Save and Damsel's Dice and Everything Nice on twitch.tv/Pixel Circus. And they're games that mean a lot to me. And I think that I've finally found a space that's playing the kind of games that I want to be a part of. And I'm very proud of them and the people who work so hard on them. So
yeah,
that's it.
Yay. All right. Genevieve, raffle code.
We have a raffle. So the raffle code is Gamer Girls. So please type in Gamer Girls in the chat and then you are entered. In order to see who wins, please stay to the beginnings of the Realms of Ukador where we will announce the winner. That is Gamer Girls. Type it in the chat now.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here and we will see you all next week.
Yes.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.